to this week's episode of Beyond the Broomstick, that podcast that opens up the possibilities of what spirituality can mean to you in your personal life, as well as remove some of the woo-woo that we see in recent years on social media. Welcome, my name is Matilda and I am your host with over 20 years experience as a professional psychic medium, spiritual coach and spiritual advisor. Welcome to this week's episode. This week we're going to be talking about some past readings that I've done. I've done thousands over the years, but I've just pulled out a few that I feel have a little bit of an underlying message for everyone, as well as talking about spiritual growth, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the downright too much woo-woo. But first of all, my job is to thank all the amazing Patreon supporters that have joined up in the past week. Patreon is an amazing platform that allows me to upload extra information, things a little bit more in depth, maybe some topics that aren't really social media savvy. We are being censored a lot on social media at the moment, and I am able to upload an extra podcast, more videos, more in-depth predictions. So if you're interested, take a look at the show notes. The link will be there for you. So this week's subscribers, I really can't thank you enough. I am in awe at how wonderful people are and how much support they show me. So we're going to thank Nadine, Cynthia, Nora, Faye, Kate Hogue, Texas Nana, Julie, Linda, Madeline Towns, Elaine Lindsay, Georgie, Tabby, Shelley, Tooncats, Bear J, Terry Rigby, Lauren, Linda, Talia Brown, Diana, Rhonda Norden, Summer Sharp, Brooke Williford, Ashton, Laurel Batchelor, Dawn Boswell, Angie Bryant, Becca, and Meg Root. You guys rock. You really do. You make what I do possible. And I'm going to say this because I get a lot of, I get a lot of negativity on social media. I actually don't. For those that are really interested in spirituality, for those that are really open, I get a lot of positivity and gratitude. When it goes across to Patreon, I know that the people that join me on Patreon have that openness to spirituality, want to learn, want all that information. And over the coming weeks, I'll be loading things up about resilience and self-care and self-love and things like that, that all really are what the culmination of spirituality is. And I'm really looking forward to that part of it. At the moment, my diary and calendar hasn't really allowed it. I'm chasing my tail, not just doing readings, but this podcast. I've got another podcast being released this week with the amazing Laurie Rivers. If you don't know about that, it's called Sassy Seers. And we're really looking forward to that. But it's just been a little bit busy and I don't get enough time to decompress. So whenever I'm not doing something, it's very important for me to ground myself and decompress. Otherwise, I'm not a very nice person. I get very cranky and short-tempered. So I know that it's time for me to just read a book, listen to a podcast, go for a walk. So as we move through April and May, my calendar frees up a huge amount and I can start bringing some of those really tangible things that you guys can start working on to help yourselves. But thank you to all of my Patreon supporters. I love you loads. Let's talk about self-love. Let's talk about spiritual growth. Let's talk about the signs, the symptoms, the things that people make mistakes doing, and how to really address and look at that spiritual growth as a massive opportunity to look within and realize how many of your needs have never been met and how you need to meet them yourself. Sorry about the rattling in the background. That is the buff. He's got this big ball that I put dry food in to entertain him. And I spend most of my time actually recovering it from beds and under sofas and things. But I've learned to shut doors so he can't get into every room. So we're going to talk about spiritual growth from a real basic point where you can start really assessing things. The really big issue when people start feeling really uncomfortable within themselves, maybe they're coming out of bad relationships, they're assessing how they've been treated by other people, there's an emptiness that they're trying to fill. And sometimes people will go, I'm going to look for a new job or a new partner, or I'm going to really investigate spirituality because that's what I'm drawn to. But the issue is that people will overindulge in all of those things, really, without looking at what the root cause is. And often the root cause is the universe has come along, whacked you across the head and said, come on, time to wake up, time to really look at yourself. And instead of looking at yourself, you look outwards. The overindulgence of spiritual tools can be just as damaging as nothing at all. I have dealt with and worked with a lot of people that have been hopping from psychic advisor to psychic advisor. And as you know, I am a firm believer that only about 95% of those people that are actually working as psychical mediums have enough training, mentorship, ethical experience, etc., to be able to help people. And they give really poor advice. I have seen people that are in this growth period, and sometimes it's because they're on a roller coaster of bad relationships, and they get told by a spiritual advisor, it's okay, my love. You've just signed a karmic contract, or you've got a soul contract with that person. You signed up to experience the abuse that person's giving you. And that immediately takes the power away from somebody. A growth period, the opportunity to experience spiritual growth, is all about empowering you and giving you the tools in order to look at what you need to look at before you can move forward. If any psychic advisor is disempowering you, walk straight away from them, okay? It's not, it just doesn't exist. Soul contracts don't exist for a start, because nobody signs up for trauma, especially I've seen some awful things that people have put down to soul contracts, and that should never, ever happen. The reason for the big searching, for the big trying to find something, people think that your power and the ability to feel freedom or liberation is going to come when you search these things. What they don't actually realise is that freedom, that liberation, isn't actually what they're looking for. They're looking to feel safe. If you are safe, if you feel safe within yourself, then that power, that freedom, that liberation is all going to come to you. Now, how do you feel safe, Matilda, you may ask? Look back at yourself. This is going to contradict what I'm going to say in a little while, but look back and think about all the things that you have never received from someone else that you've craved in order to feel safe. Whether that is a new job, whether it is a new partnership, whether it is just craving the validation or love from adults in your life when you were a child that you didn't receive. This brings us right back 100% to self-love. Self-love, and a lot of people are going to go, oh, that's so self-indulgent, Matilda. No, it's not. Self-love is the basis of everything that is going to build you up and give you that safety in the spiritual growth that you are undergoing. Self-love is where it starts and where it ends. Once you master self-love and that you give yourself everything that you haven't received, the validation, the comfort, the boundaries that you were never taught to give, that's where your growth starts. That's where your power is. Because once you love yourself enough, you are never going to be distracted. You are never going to put up with bad behavior from people, because instead of waiting for them to change, instead of waiting for them to see your soul and see who you are and understand you in a way that you understand them, you are walking away because they are not giving you what you need. You are giving you what you need. So many people wait for people to change. So many people get into relationships or have past issues with families. And you see me, look at me, see who I am, see who I've become, recognize me. And they just can't. And that's their issue. That's their journey. It's not yours. Once you turn all your energy inwards, that's when you can start seeking, maybe looking at other spiritual modalities that will complement your journey, but they're not there to start your journey. As an advisor, I can always tell you where you need to start, but I'm not going to tell you what to do. Because telling you what to do removes the power from you. This is all about you being empowered and realizing how much power you actually have. I see, obviously I'm on social media, and I tend to be quite vocal about the lack of spiritual behavior within people. I get really cross when people come onto my page and they join my page and they expect it to be all about predictions and, give me a prediction, and then they say something really nasty. I don't care about people being negative about me or not believing what I do. But when you make a really nasty comment about maybe a topic I'm talking about or somebody I'm talking about that's been asked for, then you're not spiritual, so you get removed from my page. I can see it instantly. We are cruel human beings. It blows my mind how people are constantly so obsessed with, and I'm not talking just necessarily about celebrity, but they are so obsessed with other things that are going on in the world. It could be Cheryl that's got a really good TikTok page that's having an argument with Maggie. Oh my goodness, the arguments that go on there. That's energy that you should be putting into yourself. And then you reflect and you can see why somebody may be behaving in a different manner or a difficult manner that they're being judged for. And you just sit back and you just go, you've got no business making that judgment. And they've obviously don't like themselves very much because they haven't put the time and energy into themselves. And they'd rather spend their time making negative comments on social media. It just blows my mind how people don't make the connection between, I want a psychic reading. I want you to tell me what's going to happen in the future, but I'm not actually going to do the work on myself. That's why I don't do personal readings on social media. That's one of the reasons. There are a few others. One of them being that I don't get a connection through a comment. What if we all made choices and decisions not based on our own personal gain, not based on our own personal need, but to show kindness to the collective, to everybody out there? How change the trajectory of the collective mood and growth. I think it would make a big difference. But a lot of people are still living in their ego and want to gain something, whether it's just to have their voice heard, their opinion heard, or to be louder. I've always said that the quietest person in a room is the most powerful. Think about that. If the quietest person in any room holds the most power, whether that is in a business meeting, whether it is in a personal situation, if you are quiet, if you are still, if you are holding your own counsel and working on your own self, you have no reason to be heard or to be the loudest, because another person's opinion on what you may say doesn't matter to you. You are not seeking that outward validation. We are all being manipulated, hugely manipulated. One of the biggest manipulations that's going on in the world right now is, and people call it a distraction. It's up to you whether you're distracted or not. It is, people throw the cat amongst the pigeons. Let's talk about the Republicans versus the Democrats. When someone behaves incredibly badly or makes public something incredibly bad, whether they make a speech that doesn't sit, whether they say something that wants to, I don't know, they behave badly during a speech, or they don't remember their words. We all know somebody recently that hasn't remembered their words, whichever side of the fence you sit. That manipulation is happening because people are going to social media to fight over something. They're going to social media to have an argument over it, to give their point of view. How manipulative is that? That they know by doing X, Y, or Z that you are all going to spend the time and energy on social media arguing your point, rather than trying to make a difference or asking them to take responsibility. That's a massive manipulation on a daily basis. And everyone is allowing it to happen because they're more interested in what's going on outside of them. And I'm not talking about those that want to make a change. I'm not talking about those that actually do something to change, whether it's write to your MP, whether it's helping at a food bank, something like that. I'm talking about people that do nothing but complain and then say it's a distraction. Well, they're allowing that distraction, and thus it is manipulation. Think about that for a minute. So many people want change, but they're not willing to be the change. And the old saying, I can't remember who said it. I know I should have, I should tell you who said these things. Let the change be you. It does affect the collective. The more you work on your own energy and put it out to the universe, the more the collective is affected and the energy lifts. You can make the smallest bit of difference. But if you want spiritual growth, it will often mean losing some friends, walking away from situations that you would have hoped would change. It's about you taking the power back for you and not worrying about everyone else. Everyone's always going to come up with an excuse. I can't do it because my left leg won't work, or I can't do it because my head hurts, or I can't do it because I've got to look after 3 other people. You can still work on your own self-growth and your self-love, even if you have other people to care for. Because how are you supposed to care for them in a way that is possible, that doesn't exhaust you, if you do not look after yourself. It is massive when you are faced with an opportunity for growth. Only a few people will ever take it up. But the growth really does come from within. Try not to get too distracted with too many spiritual inputs and opinions. Choose wisely, the same as if you would choose wisely what news channel you would listen to, what truth you would listen to. I'm not saying that I am the be-all and end-all of anything, because I may not gel with people. I can be quite blunt in my teachings. It's because I'm passionate. We're going to put it down to I'm quite passionate about my teachings. But what I really want people to do is not overindulge. You don't need a crystal for every occasion. You don't need your tarot cards read every day in order to give you direction. You don't need, and this is why I do put a limit on the amount of psychic readings you can have. 3 to 6 months is plenty, because you have to allow things to start working. Everything you're asking, whether it be manifesting, whether it be trying to change from within, whether it be that safety that you are looking for, comes from learning to love yourself, and then everything will stem from there. And I've said this again, it's given me such an insight. I am spiritual, and yes, I do have the privilege of being able to hear and listen and be shown things from my spirit guides, and I do talk to spirit, but that's about other people. I am of service to other people. If I didn't love myself and care for myself in a way that is practical, I would not be able to do what I do. And it was such an eye-opener for me to realize the damage that my family and other people had done to me psychologically growing up, that I had to go through the journey of self-love. And it's loving yourself enough to do that and put the time aside to work on that. I hope that's been interesting, and it's given you a little bit of insight as to where I'm coming from when I do get quite harsh on TikTok, etc. But remember, this journey is about you. It's about nobody else. It's very personal. And once you've got the courage, I think it's amazing for people to really reflect on their needs and how they can meet their own needs. And other people will then no longer take advantage of you. So I promised you some readings and some feedback today, because a lot of people have asked for information about past readings and things like that. And I think it's important that you get what you want. So one of the first readings, and I have actually talked about this, I think it was on my old TikTok account. I had a lady come to me. This is a psychic reading, but it sort of did end up a bit mediumship as well. And she was going through quite a traumatic divorce. She had been responsible for all the financials in the house. Her husband moved into her house that she owned. She'd bought for a very reasonable price, and he claimed to put all his money into his business. He had quite a good business, but you know how businessmen can be. They can hide money really easily. After 15 years and they had a son, they filed for divorce, and I think there was some DV involved as well. And the house that she had bought for about 100,000 had ended up being worth about 500,000. So he decided to come after the house, and claiming that he had no money, and he wanted child support as well. Now, I don't talk about finances. I cannot give financial advice, but I can give information that Spirit give me. And if you can put the pieces of the puzzle together, then that is going to be up to you. She came to me and we were talking about how she was physically and psychologically going to move forward with things. And I told her a few predictions that I saw coming up. And then I said, do you know who Louise is? do you know who Louisa is? And she said, yeah, that's my ex-husband's grandmother. I said, okay. She's talking about a house. She's talking about a house and she's showing me like a blue door. And she said, okay, that's their holiday home. And I said, I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but there's something at the holiday home that you need to find. And the grandmother had passed away, obviously, because she was giving me information. But because the house was still in the family, my client was able to go and speak to her ex-in-laws and say, look, I'd really like to take my son away for a weekend. Can I use the beach house? And they were really open to it and fine with it. So she went down there for a week. During her week there, she had a bit of a nosy and found documents that he had hidden that had banking details and hidden money, etc. Now, she wasn't able to take those documents because it, wasn't lawful, etc. But she was able to write down the numbers, hand them to her lawyer, and get a financial. What are they called when they're going to a forensic? That's it, a forensic accountant to look into details. And it took another 6 to 8 months. She came back for her yearly reading that she did quite often with me. So she was an old client, and she had yearly readings. And she told me that not only did it turn out that he had a lot of money that he had channeled away from his business, claiming that it wasn't making enough money or it was breaking even. So she picked up the financial side of everything during their marriage. But he had hundreds and thousands of dollars hidden in bank accounts that, until she had that trip to that house, were never going to be found. And he ended up paying her some of that and having to pay child support, which was never going to be on the table. And she got to keep her house, which is a wonderful story. So that's one of the really interesting stories that I've done that are more psychic / mediumship, and interesting how spirit can help from a distance. And they don't take sides. And that's proof that they do not take sides in mediumship readings. And they never talk about finances. People expect, they're going to get financial information. I'm not a financial advisor. Spirit don't care really about finances. But they knew what she needed and told her in a roundabout way where it was, and she was able to find that information, which I thought was really exciting. And my next reading, I'm just going to read out a review, because I have a Google review page, and a lot of people will email me reviews, and I don't always get to load them up, which I really do need to concentrate on doing. But I'm going to read out one for you. This is actually a review from somebody that took part in one of my smaller Zoom mediumship groups, where I run either, as well as my private readings, I do run sort of 10 people mediumship groups where everyone gets to have a reading, and they're a lot more expensive. Or I run big group readings where there's the opportunity for about 8 to 10 people to get a reading. And this one's from a lovely lady. I won't mention her name, but she has put it on Google. And I recently participated in a small group mediumship reading with Matilda that was astonishing. The greatest part of it was a message for my daughter-in-law and her father. Her mother, his wife, has early onset Alzheimer's, and it has been incredibly difficult and sad for them both. Matilda brought a message from someone I didn't know that was so comforting to them both. It turns out it was the Alzheimer's patient's mother. The messages to me were very specific, and she got the names and dates spot on. I so enjoyed hearing the readings for the others in the group as well. I've had mediumship readings before that were clearly not being done by true mediums, and I entered these with a healthy skepticism. I was blown away by the accuracy. Wonderful. And that just goes to show that sometimes when you have a mediumship reading, whether it be in a group or whether it be a personal mediumship reading, people can piggyback on them. If they see the opportunity to get a message through to their loved one, they are going to take it. And I've had people come through for their next door neighbour. It's very specific, so it's never wishy-washy. I've had messages come through for a next door neighbour. I've had messages delivered to a work colleague who was having a reading with me, and their son had died very tragically about 6 or 8 months prior. And he was just front and centre wanting to get a message to his mum, but he used the fact that his mum's colleague was in a reading with me to do that. And yeah, it could be disappointing, but I don't have control over who decides to step forward and who doesn't. If I had that sort of control, I'd be able to manage my dog a bit better, to be honest. I don't. And I don't call people in unless I have a real connection. I've seen some mediums claim to be calling people in. It's not how it works. I always tell everyone, I don't want to know anything until I have made sure we have a connection. You don't need to tell me who you want to bring through or anything like that. It's really important that I get to prove with evidence that I am connected to your loved one. So that's the end of today's episode. I'm so sorry it's been late. I've been very busy. We've had a lot of tech issues. And for those of you that know and follow me on TikTok, you will know that my dog Buffy got taken very dangerously sick yesterday. Thank goodness he's okay. But I was just very worried about him. But he is much better now. And I'm traveling. I'm doing in-person readings in Melbourne from tomorrow, which is Thursday. I am in Melbourne for 3 days. These have been booked many months in advance because that's unfortunately how it is. I'm then back home. I've got a couple of days of work, but I do have still a few spots left in the large group mediumship event that is happening on the 21st Australian time, which would be the evening of the 20th if you are listening in the US. It's $35 to take part. You're not guaranteed a reading. There's I think about 6 or 8 people that will get a reading out of the big group, but it's an opportunity for me to explain how I work, how I get my messages, where things will make sense, how evidence is based and that sort of thing. So if you're interested, pop along and book your spot there. I think there's only about 10 spots left. Other than that, my dates are being released on the 1st of April, Australian time, for June readings. I haven't decided whether I'll release July at the same time, but June will definitely be released. Remember, if you are a paid Patreon member, you get 5 days heads up on all dates being released. So you get early release. Keep an eye out also on the 13th. You will, the release, 13th America time, US time, Sassy Seers, a new podcast with the amazing Laurie Rivers and myself, is being released. Okay, thank you so much for listening to me. Thank you for your patience. I look forward to next week, and I'll catch you soon. Lots of love.